Welcome back, everyone. I can't believe we're going into our final general session. I don't know about you, but this day, I feel like I blinked and we're drawing to the end, but I can guarantee that our last two speakers are really good. So I'm so glad you're all here to celebrate this wonderful conclusion to the day with me. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Phil Guindi to the stage. Welcome, Phil.
I like the song. Thanks, Rebecca. Someone's been paying attention to my music. All right, so I think I'm going to help warm things up, and I know I'm standing between another really outstanding speaker with Philip Jackson and then drinks, but I do think I have some very relevant content for you guys, and it actually builds on what Brendan Miller talked about. He kind of highlighted a little bit of the silos that we have between technology and what the business can do. I'm going to take an even broader perspective and start with this guy. Who knows Dieter Rams? He's a really well-known industrial designer. He kind of was one of the very early people who codified something that we now call design thinking. He was born in 1932. He's an 86-year-old gentleman now. He looks like an intellectual. Look at that picture, right? This is someone you want to learn from. He's best known as a product designer at Braun. He started as an industrial designer and then eventually became their chief design officer. And in the 1970s, it's actually interesting, his grandfather was a carpenter, and his grandfather really influenced him and gave him a feel for, what craft is. And he thought, I have this sense of what design is, but how can I tell what good design is versus bad design? And so he codified it. He said, here are 10 things that really would outline good design. He's obviously had a big impact on our industry. Apple designer Johnny Ives has credited Dieter Rams as someone who had a big influence on his development. And you guys might recognize some of these products. In the 1980s, the Philips had a lot of products that were in broad consumer circulation, and Dieter had a big influence on those. All right, so what are those 10 principles? I'll go into the principles one by one, and so I won't repeat too much, but they kind of make sense and they're really broad. So good design is innovative. Good design makes a product useful. Good design is aesthetic. It makes a product understandable. It's unobtrusive. It doesn't get in the way. It's honest. It's long-lasting. It's thought through, environmentally friendly, and it's as little design as possible. All right, so how does this relate to our world? Well, before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit about me. And you can see just by looking at that picture, this guy is a thought leader. So I'm Canadian. I was born in 1972. I have this weird mix. I studied electrical engineering, then did my MBA, and I happened to actually get a lot of exposure to design. I actually worked at Adobe for a number of years, and then most recently at Ingram Micro in the e-commerce and logistics space. I was an early player at this little company, Shipwire, that Ingram Micro ended up acquiring. And today, I'm introducing to you the good e-commerce design principles. And I think you'll see that these actually are being applied by some of the leading companies out there. And hopefully, you'll find this talk inspiring. So what are they? Well, they're essentially all of those good design principles applied for e-commerce. And let me give you some examples. So first, innovative. Good e-commerce is innovative. And I specifically picked a few examples that were not necessarily product related, but that were, that tied to other aspects of e-commerce delivery. So Harry's is a shaving company. They make razor blades and sell razors as well. And one thing that Harry's did that was very innovative is they were about to launch their website. And they had this idea, we're going to essentially lower the cost of quality razors and get people on a subscription model and all of that. But leading up to their launch, they suddenly had this big fear. What if we launch and no one shows up? So they had a very, very successful viral campaign where you can see a screenshot of an element of that campaign where within a week they got 100,000 people signed up so that by the time they launched, they had an active audience. And the way they did that was by engaging with their early consumers and encouraging those people to have their friends join. And the whole experience was really thought through. I'd encourage you guys, actually Tim Ferriss's blog profiled these guys and how they ran their campaign. If you don't know the details around it, it's actually well worth checking out. Here's an example of a company that is in the mattress space. You're probably, a number of you are familiar with them. They're one of a number of players that identified that with e-commerce, you might have to rethink your product. So in the case of a mattress, if a consumer is buying online, you might need to rethink the form factor to make it convenient for them to get their mattress. And if you think about, what is most important maybe to a young person living in New York City, how easy can you make the reception of the product? How do you take pain out of it? So it's another example of how e-commerce can and should be innovative. This last example I love. This is a company from Japan. It's called Start Today. And they just actually launched now in the US. It's essentially, you can order a suit, and that suit comes to your home and it'll measure your dimensions. And then once they have your dimensions, they can essentially sell made-to-measure clothes to you. So they're getting data that then helps them deliver a better product for you. And this is in this kind of major trend that we're seeing with mass customization. So good e-commerce is innovative. Useful. I love these examples. So a number of you must be familiar with Houzz, the kind of home decor, home improvement website. I think one of the things that Houzz really got was that before a shopper even comes to the site, they might be looking for inspiration. They're looking for ideas. And so, they, instead of starting with just exposing products to you, they focused on the social elements, the inspiration elements. And as you guys, I think those of you who are familiar with them know, this has been incredibly successful. They have an insane Alexa ranking for a company that's been around for just a little while, and they're really strong in that home decor segment. Here's another company that essentially understood. So the company's Innova Culinary. They sell sous vide cookers, and what's awesome about these, so these little cookers help you, cook your products at very precise temperature. The cooks out there know what I'm talking about. But what they did is they didn't just sell a great product. They actually have a website that has recipes on how to use their product. And it's this whole razor and blade model, but essentially good e-commerce is useful. Think about how you can support your customers through their life cycle. Good e-commerce is aesthetic. I kind of went to the stereotypical example here, but you look at Apple products, they are as aesthetic as they come. That phone almost looks like food. You kind of want to take a bite into it. And I'm sure a lot of time and effort went into taking that picture, but good e-commerce is aesthetic. Now, when you think about these principles, great e-commerce is the combination of all of them. And sometimes you see companies, hyper-focused on one at the expense of the others. I'd encourage all of us to think, again, more holistically. Good e-commerce is easy to understand. So I love this. I mean, if I had more time, I would have actually showed you what not good e-commerce is. In the car industry, just for kicks, look at how cars were typically marketed, and then look at how Tesla does this. So this is the Model S. That tagline at the top, the best car. The highlight, the product. It's sexy, it looks good. What are the three key value propositions? It's fast, it accelerates really quickly. The typical buyer of this is looking for a performance sedan. It's safe. And then the last one is a little bit of that counter. Electric cars are going to leave me stranded, so they make sure to hit on that. So keep in mind those 3 points, right? That's the Model S, the best SUV. So look, they're not the same value propositions. And it's so frustrating when you go to e-commerce sites and they have this template where they haven't thought about their buyer. So look at what they're highlighting. Safety first, right? I'm a parent. I'm buying an SUV. Obviously, safety is the most important thing. Space. I'm buying an SUV because I want more space. And then again, that range anxiety. And then the Roadster, right? No mention of safety here. Who cares about safety? It's all about speed and performance. And again, the range anxiety, which is going to be a factor with electric cars. The Model 3 is the one area where you can see they haven't quite figured it out. First of all, they're introducing it as the Model 3. There's no real positioning yet. And then it's pretty clear that they're still just experimenting. But nevertheless, it's clean. It's easy to understand that positioning. This is a company called Wellness Effects. They're in the, and again, this is in the easy to understand. I wanted to go from cars, which is a pretty sophisticated purchase, to one that's even a bit more complex. So these guys offer, blood. They'll do essentially blood diagnosis. Their target market are health nuts, people that have potential health concerns, where they can provide you a very convenient you can get your blood test, and then they'll make sense of it on an interactive dashboard. What I love about this, if you go to their website, you'll see more detail. But in a couple simple graphics, they've taken what is a fairly complex service and made it crystal clear. How does it work? What are the 5 key steps? And then what are the products that are available? It's not all these technical terms. There's like 4 packages. And you, as a consumer, can quickly self-select. Unobtrusive, so good e-commerce is unobtrusive. It doesn't get in the way. I've got a couple examples here. So this company, No Bull, has some really cool sneakers that are really targeted at the CrossFit community. This chat box, really well executed. If you need help, you click on it, it expands, you can interact with someone, but it's unobtrusive. It's not getting in the way. And then the way these guys do email marketing is amazing. And I'm not saying they're the only ones, but so you get these emails, and they're really engaging. They're starting with the product. They're leading with the product. And I'm sure that their engagement is a lot higher than maybe what some of the other companies are doing, where you can see that tagline, "Train in blue this summer." It's very contextual, and they go right to the image. So good design is honest. A couple examples. This company, Everlane, is a clothing company. And what they say, what differentiates them, is that they're very clear about their supply chain. So you can see we believe we can all make a difference. And they actually back that up with a lot of information to their customers about why they have a very clean supply chain, all the ways that their supply chain is clean. It's a really great example of how good e-commerce is honest. And honesty is being clear about who you are and really speaking to your customers. Patagonia, just an amazing example of this, right? Patagonia is big in terms of sustainability, and they really make that clear. They're very honest, so much so that and I'm not making a political statement, but to Patagonia's audience, this is a big deal. Protecting lands is a big deal. And the day that, the monument in Utah, that the Trump administration was looking at reversing some of what had happened, this was their website. This is honest. And I know, Nike's been in the news with the Colin Kaepernick controversy. And I think that's an example of where, are they being honest? And there's a lot of discussion about that. I think it's important to be honest to your brand and to make sure you're speaking, consistently over time. So good e-commerce is honest. Long-lasting. So, we all get caught up in the latest and greatest, but good e-commerce is long-lasting. And a perfect example of that is Amazon Prime as a loyalty program. And I could cite a number of things that Amazon has done that have been great, but Prime there's been a lot of vision around that. They launched the loyalty program. Initially, the big focus was 2-day shipping. And they got some traction with it, and they didn't just get distracted. They've kept making that loyalty program better. If you guys have shopped in a Whole Foods store recently, you know that as a Prime member, you get a discount, and they could get even more data about you. They made a big deal about Prime Day. Prime, as Amazon was getting into digital content, they added that to the loyalty program. They've kept making that loyalty program richer, and that shows a real continuity in thought. And I think that this is something that we should all really think about. Good e-commerce is long-lasting. Thought through to the last detail. So Apple is another great company to watch here, and no pun with the watch, but look at that picture, right? There's so much thought that went into this. And the interesting thing with Apple is it's so easy to kind of miss the details, to just get caught up in their experience, but not to recognize that they've actually really thought through why did they pick water, right? And the water adds a lot here. So water is sweat. Water is water sports, right? Water is, I think, escapism and travel. I actually think they thought about that. And so this attention to detail is really important. Moo is another company that I think exemplifies that in their own niche market. This is a picture of some business cards I got from Moo. They have a premium package and the faux seal, and that unboxing experience was amazing. Good e-commerce is environmentally friendly. And a great example of that is Allbirds. These guys have sneakers that are apparently, I think you're not hip in the Bay Area if you don't wear Allbirds. I'm clearly not hip. But they've made a big deal about how their product is sustainable, and they back that up with some details. And then last but not least, good e-commerce is just enough e-commerce. And sometimes I think we want to overdo it. My example is Stella McCartney page. And if you look at this, there's a lot of attention to detail here. First of all, it starts with the product. And there's things we could nitpick as well. But I love how they want to drive that engagement with their customers. They want them to sign up to the newsletters, which is profiled down at the bottom. But there's actually an X there. They respect their users enough that if they don't want that, that can just go away. I love how you look at that tiny little banner, free shipping, on all your orders. It's visible, but it's not getting in the way of commerce, right? So they wanted to make sure that their customers knew, but they didn't, overdo it. So good e-commerce is just enough e-commerce. Those are the 10 principles. I think if we think broadly, we can deliver amazing experiences. I hope you found this talk useful, and thank you for your time.